Yeah, I mean, very happy. I definitely didn't expect to be on pole here after FP3 as well, and looking at how the whole weekend was. But yeah, the car came alive in the night. We made some final changes, and yeah, it was a lot more enjoyable to drive. The grip was coming to me, and around here, you know, qualifying lap is extremely difficult because of all the walls. You need to try and nail it, and yeah, it's really satisfying, you know, to be first here in qualifying. Is of course the best position for tomorrow, even though I think tomorrow in the race it will be tough to keep them behind, but we're going to give it a good go.
You say that the pole sitter has won 3 out of 4 times here, so do you still fancy your chances in the race?
Yeah, well, we'll do our best. I mean, you know, so far I'm just very happy that we again had a solid qualifying, much better than what we had in Bahrain, of course, and yeah, let's see what we can do tomorrow in the race.
He did it again. Max Verstappen, on a night filled with chaos, speed, and pure strategy, took pole position at the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But how did he do it when it seemed the McLarens had everything to win? Today, we'll tell you everything you didn't see, what he said, and what's coming up for the championship. Max Verstappen wasn't the favorite arriving at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Throughout all the practice sessions, the McLarens, especially Lando Norris, clearly dominated. In FP2, Norris set the fastest time of the weekend, and the RB21 seemed completely off the pace. Even Verstappen himself admitted it. After FP3, he didn't see a pole position as possible. But Formula 1 is the sport where a tenth of a second changes everything, and in Jeddah, the night transforms the cars and the drivers. Verstappen surprised everyone with an absolutely surgical lap on a circuit that doesn't forgive mistakes. He skimmed the walls, hit blind spots, and adjusted every corner to the limit. The result was a final lap of 1 minute and 27.294 seconds, just 0.010 seconds faster than Oscar Piastri. The difference between first and second was literally the blink of an eye. It wasn't just speed, it was pinpoint precision under pressure. And the most impressive thing is that it came after a weekend full of doubts. Verstappen had dealt with an unpredictable RB21, an unstable setup, and a competition that seemed to have the advantage. But in Q3 everything changed. After a red flag caused by Lando Norris's accident, the session turned into a psychological battle. The drivers had to redefine their strategies, and Verstappen took advantage of the chaos to win. While the others were trying to regain pace, he and his team were already executing a flawless strategy. The car's transformation also played a crucial role. According to Verstappen, the final adjustments to the RB21 were key. They went from having a nervous car to one that came to life overnight, in the Dutch driver's own words. That ability to adapt, change setup at the last minute, and maximize the car's potential is what distinguishes a champion from the rest. The Jeddah Street circuit demands total precision. It's fast, narrow, and with walls inches from the ideal line. Verstappen explained that there are corners where you literally can't see where you're turning, like turn 22. It's a mental and physical challenge that very few can master. And on this occasion, he did it better than anyone. This pole position isn't just another statistic. It's a statement of intent. In a season marked by the RB21's inconsistency, the threat of McLaren, and rumors of internal tension at Red Bull, Verstappen once again demonstrated that when everything is at stake, he is the man to beat. And although it's just a pole position, the way he achieved it, the context in which he achieved it, and the narrow margin that defined it make this qualifying one of the most impressive of the year. This wasn't just speed, it was character. Qualifying for the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was much more than a display of individual talent. Behind Max Verstappen's pole position was meticulous strategy, timing, and real-time decision-making. In that high-pressure scenario, Red Bull executed a maneuver that made the difference, and the person directly responsible was Gianpiero Lambiase, Verstappen's race engineer. It all started after the Q3 stoppage. Lando Norris had lost control of the McLaren at turn 5, bringing out a red flag that halted the session with just over 8 minutes remaining. These kinds of situations tend to completely disorganize teams. Time is limited, traffic increases, and nerves run high. But Red Bull didn't improvise. Lambiase analyzed the situation and accurately predicted how much time would be available after the restart. His timing was perfect. There would be room for 2 laps as long as everything was done to the second. Red Bull acted as if it were a stoppage in the race. They prepared the car, changed the tires, adjusted details down to the last detail, and sent Verstappen out on track with a fresh set of soft compounds. This speed and efficiency allowed the Dutchman to complete a first reconnaissance lap to gauge the car's behavior, find key grip points, and prepare for the final lap. That first attempt was essential. Although it wasn't the fastest, it was key to adjusting the approach, understanding where the greatest risks could be taken, and, above all, regaining confidence. On a circuit like Jeddah, where the margin for error is practically zero, that first lap was like a dress rehearsal before the final act. When the crucial moment arrived, Verstappen already knew exactly how to attack each corner. He knew he had a unique opportunity and he made the most of it. His time of 1 minute and 27.294 seconds was not only the result of driving talent, but also of the perfect coordination between driver and engineer. Verstappen acknowledged this at the end of the day. GP was the genius behind my qualifying strategy. This is no small statement. In an environment where every decision counts, having such an accurate reading of the remaining time and tire potential was crucial. Red Bull's strategy was not only brilliant in its execution but also in its audacity. While other teams hesitated between going out early or waiting until the end, Red Bull went all in on a final play with pace, tire temperature, and a clear track. And they won. These kinds of decisions separate good teams from champions. In a qualifying that could have gone to McLaren, Red Bull found a way to reverse the conditions and make the most of the chaos. Because in modern Formula One, winning isn't just about speed. It's about anticipating, adapting, and executing with precision. Just what Red Bull did that night in Saudi Arabia. The RB21 is, without a doubt, one of the most complex and enigmatic cars Red Bull has produced in recent years. This isn't due to a lack of speed, but rather to its unpredictable nature. Max Verstappen described it with a very clear phrase, hit and miss. When it works well, it's a competitive and dangerous machine. But when the balance isn't perfect, it becomes an extremely difficult car to drive at its limits. This erratic behavior is nothing new in Formula One. Many cars throughout history have been shown to have a very narrow performance window, where small adjustments can mean the difference between pole position and missing the top 5. In the case of the RB21, this variability has been more pronounced than in previous seasons. Verstappen won from pole in Japan just 2 weeks ago, but in Bahrain he couldn't qualify higher than 7th and finished the race in 6th. This inconsistency is what most worries the Milton Keynes team. Behind this roller coaster of performance is a complex, constantly evolving aerodynamic package. For Saudi Arabia, Red Bull introduced a series of technical updates focused primarily on the underbody of the car. The goal? To improve cornering stability and high-speed aerodynamic efficiency. Among the most significant modifications was the alteration to the central section of the floor, right where the venturi channels connect to the edges of the floor. This change allows for different management of pressures under the car, shifting the center of aerodynamic pressure slightly rearward. These types of adjustments are extremely delicate. Modifying the load distribution can improve traction in fast corners, but also alter the car's sensitivity in slow corners. And while these changes aren't always visible to the naked eye, they have a huge impact on the car's dynamic behavior. On a mechanical level, Red Bull also revised the internal packaging of the side pods. The intention was to optimize the flow of internal fluids such as air and coolants, to reduce turbulence and improve the car's thermal efficiency. All of this, in addition, was intended to keep the car's temperature under control on a circuit as hot as Jeddah. As part of this work, a larger cooling outlet was added to the engine cover, a technical decision that indicates the RB21 was operating at the limits of its thermal capabilities. But even with all these modifications, the car still isn't behaving predictably. And that raises a series of questions for the remainder of the season. Will Red Bull be able to stabilize the RB21's performance? Or will they always rely on Verstappen having inspired days to maximize the car's potential? The difference between Max and other drivers in the same environment, such as Yuki Tsunoda or even Liam Lawson in previous sessions, has been notable. The Dutchman is the only one who manages to adapt to the car when it doesn't respond well. This is another clear indication that the RB21 isn't an easy car, even for experienced drivers. In short, the RB21 has a very high ceiling, but its foundation remains unstable. The improvements introduced for Saudi Arabia have worked in qualifying, but their effectiveness in race pace and in different conditions still needs to be demonstrated. Red Bull is at a critical stage of development, and every technical detail counts to turn this car into a consistent and dominant tool, not just an occasional weapon. Because in such a tight championship, consistency is what ultimately makes the difference. Max Verstappen's pole position in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix gives him a crucial strategic advantage. But that doesn't guarantee victory in a race that promises to be as unpredictable as it is demanding. Jeddah is a high-speed street circuit, where the possibilities of incidents, errors, and external factors such as tire degradation can change the course at any moment. Sunday's strategic context, the track conditions, and the starting grid all predict an intense race, where the smallest detail could determine the winner. According to the data collected during the practice sessions, tire degradation will be an important factor. While not high enough to justify 2 stops, it is still high enough to raise doubts about the execution of a single optimal strategy. Pirelli has confirmed that most teams are planning a single stop, and almost all have reserved at least one set of hard tires, opting for a long stint in the second part of the race. The high temperatures expected for Sunday could further complicate managing the medium compound in the first stint, especially if there is a lengthy safety car period that cools the tires and disrupts the pit stop window. Verstappen, starting from pole position, will have the advantage of controlling the pace in the opening laps. However, his challenge will not only be to hold off Piastri and Russell behind him, but also to keep his tires in the correct temperature window, avoid overheating, and avoid being pressured into making mistakes on an unforgiving track. Statistics indicate that Jeddah has a high probability of incidents that trigger safety cars, which could reshape the race at any moment. Oscar Piastri will start from second place, and that represents a real threat. The Australian has demonstrated consistent pace throughout the weekend, and his car has been particularly strong in the high-speed sectors. His start will be key. If he can match Verstappen's acceleration in the opening meters, we could see a close duel in the first corners, where every inch counts. George Russell, from third place, could also play an important role, especially if Mercedes manages to execute an alternative strategy that allows him to jump positions through an early stop or an undercut. Lando Norris's situation adds another layer of complexity. Starting from 10th place with a car that has the pace to be on the podium, the possibility of a comeback is on the table. But doing so in Jeddah won't be easy. Overtaking is tricky, and traffic can ruin any attempt at progression if the team gets the strategy wrong. Furthermore, Norris needs important points to maintain his championship lead, which could lead him to take additional risks. In terms of race pace, the RB21 remains a mystery. Although Verstappen took it to pole, its long-term performance remains inconsistent. If the car suffers from early degradation or balance issues on long runs, Red Bull could find itself in trouble against a McLaren team that has displayed more stable behavior. Therefore, the start, the management of the first stint, and the response to any safety car will be absolutely decisive. Finally, the mental component cannot be ignored. Verstappen is in a position to regain the championship lead, and the pressure will be on him from the opening lap. Every decision, every lap, every pit stop could determine the fate of the championship. What happens in Jeddah will not only be a matter of scoring points, but of sending a message. Who is in control, who is best prepared, and who has the resources to withstand pressure. Qualifying for the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was a powerful statement. Max Verstappen, on a weekend filled with doubts, responded with surgical precision and perfect execution. But beyond the numbers and times, what was seen in Jeddah was the reaffirmation of a driver who, despite the difficulties of the RB21, continues to demonstrate why he is the benchmark of this generation. Verstappen's achievement wasn't just a pole position, it was a psychological blow. On a circuit where he didn't feel like the favorite, with a car that has shown clear ups and downs, and with McLaren pushing hard since free practice, Max and Red Bull managed to turn around an adverse situation. His message to the paddock was clear. Even when conditions aren't ideal, when the pressure is on and the margin for error is non-existent, he can extract the impossible from his car. It's not just a matter of talent. It's a winning mentality that prevails over any circumstance. But this pole isn't the end, it's just the beginning of a new battle. The 2025 championship is tighter than ever. McLaren has shown it's ready to fight for every point. Mercedes remains close, waiting for its opportunity. And Ferrari hasn't said its last word. The competitive landscape has changed. Red Bull no longer dominates easily, and that demands the best from every team member every day. Every mistake is costly, and every success can define a championship. What lies ahead will be a series of even more complex challenges. With Miami and Imola on the horizon, and a schedule that offers no respite, Red Bull must prove that Saudi Arabia was no exception. The RB21 upgrades must translate into consistent results. The pressure on Verstappen will not diminish. On the contrary, it will grow with each session, with each lap, with each approaching threat in the standings. Therefore, this pole position cannot be interpreted as a simple Saturday victory. It is a warning. It is the turning point where Verstappen, amidst uncertainty, regains prominence and puts Red Bull back in the spotlight. Jeddah was just the first step in a battle that is just beginning. The fight for the title is on. The champion has spoken on track. Now the rest must respond.